Thank you for this. I'm glad to have the opportunity to speak with you. First of all, I'm Christie Whitman. I was former governor of New Jersey. I live on a farm. I have shotguns. I grew up in a family where people, we hunted birds primarily. And my father was a lifelong member of the NRA, and even he at this point in time would be absolutely against what we're seeing happening. There is no reason for an assault weapon to be in the hands of anyone other than police or the military. I'm a Republican. I believe in the Second Amendment. You have a right to bear arms, but not these kinds of arms. It's not Republicans or Democrats who are being killed. It's people. Republicans and Democrats far too often are children. Our children shouldn't have to go to school where it feels like an armed camp, where teachers are armed, where this was proposed by someone, a Republican senator, unfortunately, that there only be one egress. What happens in case of fire? What happens when there is some other kind of emergency and you need to get a high school of 1,200 kids out the door? It just makes no sense to try to solve the problems we're facing this way when we know there are other answers. There is a bill now that's moving. There are several bills, but they get stuck on the Senate. And we need to push the Senate. We need to get them to act. I believe that the age for purchasing firearms should be increased from 18 to 21, that the waiting period is lengthened. And I really believe that gun training should be required of anyone who's purchasing a gun, any kind of a gun. I know I have to go through it in order to get my hunting license. I support the red flag laws that would allow law enforcement a greater investment in identifying those who pose a threat to themselves or to the community. And if it were up to me, as I mentioned earlier, I would believe and I would be comfortable with banning certain automatic weapons. They just don't belong in the hands of individual citizens. This is our opportunity. And it's clear that a majority of the American people believe that we should do something. Frankly, I believe that a majority of the NRA members also understand the need for background checks, the need for that waiting period. And certainly most of them have gone through gun training and know how important it is. You give someone who hasn't gone through this kind of training a gun, allow them to take it into, say, a mall. Something starts to happen. They panic. No one knows what they're going to do in those kinds of active shooter situations. Far more damage can be done to innocent people by people who are untrained, by people who have weapons that they don't know how to use. People have weapons that are far beyond their capacity to control. We are the only country in the world that's seen this kind of devastation wrought on our churches, on our schools, and our outside of our churches, when we're grocery shopping. What kind of a world are we bringing the next generation into? I have 7 grandkids. I don't want them being scared that they having to go through these drills of an active shooter. Fortunately, one of the schools tells the preschoolers that it's really looking for wild animals come in, and that's when they should take these steps. But the kids are smart. They get it. They understand, and it's traumatizing. We've certainly been through enough with the pandemic to know that the impact on emotions is huge and can be huge, and little kids pick this up and carry it with them through life. We need to come together. We need to make our voices heard, because frankly, the only reason that these bills don't move is because those of us who believe in the fact that we need to take actions don't communicate with those who are actually making the decisions. We have great arguments with our significant others, with our car radios, or with the television. We assume that because every poll says that better than 80% of the American people want to see some action here, that of course it'll be done. That's not what happens. Elected representatives respond to their constituents. If they get the message that people are demanding action and serious action, not just something that just passes as a placebo, that we want to see real and meaningful action that will start to protect our citizens, then they will respond. And it's so easy nowadays. The internet makes it so easy to communicate. Let's flood their offices. The 24/7 People's Filibuster for Gun Safety is a way to do this. Join with them. Work with us. Make it happen, because we're the ones that can get it done. It's our country. These people work for us. We have to let them know that we demand action, because we're sick and tired of getting up and seeing how many people have just been killed or wounded. And even if you're not physically wounded by a gun, anyone who is in the proximity of a mass shooting or someone, any kind of a shooting, is traumatized. They live with that forever. And so it's time, it's way beyond time in my mind, to take the right actions, which means being firm, going forward in a way that responds to what the American people say they want, and letting the legislature, the Congress, know it's time to act. The bill that the Senate has before now that went through the House that they're still working on, their bipartisan bill, doesn't go nearly as far as I would like it to go, but it's a step. And frankly, I have long been of the opinion that it's better to get something done than nothing. At least once you've broken that initial barrier, you can then build on it. And frankly, that's what the NRA is afraid of. Even though, as I said before, a majority of their members support doing some of these very common sense things and taking these actions. The problem is that we're not firm enough in our demand of our elected officials. We've forgotten the importance of voting. And when you get in touch with these elected officials, you tell them, I'm going to base my vote in the next election on the way you answer this question. Are you going to take positive action? Will you vote for these bills? Will you move this along? Because that's what has to happen if we're ever going to see an end to this. And the fact that the way we're talking to one another, we don't just argue with our political opponents, they're our enemies now. And that kind of rhetoric needs to stop as well. We need to take a moment and take a breath and decide we're not the enemy. There are going to be people that say, look, I have a weapon that could be categorized as an automatic weapon, and I've never done anything bad. And I go to target practice and I go to competitions. Fine. You can have those automatic weapons at a competition. Let everybody go in and borrow one so nobody has their own gun that they may have worked on to ensure that the accuracy of what they're doing. And then leave it there. Don't bring it home with you. There is so much that can be done, but only if we, the American people, demand it. And that's what we're talking about today. That's the importance of the action that Congress can take. It is something that will, if they do it right, will go down in history as an extremely important act to save the United States. Thank you very much.